So what happens when the people we ask to defend the Constitution are ordered to choose between their career and their conscience? During COVID, thousands of U.S. service members were given a directive: comply or risk losing everything, their rank, their retirement, even their ability to take care of their families. Now, some followed the orders, others refused, and nearly all of them paid a price. There's a new documentary taking a hard look at those stories. It's called Duty to Disobey from Children's Health Defense, and it's hitting theaters nationwide on June 30th. The film isn't just about the military, it's about something every American should be thinking about. Where does lawful authority end and where does personal responsibility begin? One of the people featured in the film, who we're about to talk to, is Arizona State Representative Nick Cupper, a 20-year Air Force veteran, a husband, a father of 4, including a daughter with special needs, who says he nearly lost his entire career and his family's medical security after refusing the COVID vaccine. His story and many others raise a question that goes far beyond the military. What are you supposed to do when following orders means going against what you believe is right? Take a look at the trailer for Duty to Disobey. Tickets are available now and opens in theaters across the country June 30th.
I had a battalion commander come to me and she said, "Dear God, we're killing our own soldiers."
We gather today to honor the incredible service members.
We owe you our thanks. We owe you our respect. We owe you our freedom.
Just as we have gathered before to remember those who served, those who fought, and those who gave their last full measure of devotion for our country.
According to the Associated Press, the Pentagon is going to require vaccines for all service members.
I'm asking the Defense Department to look into how and when they will add COVID-19 to the list of vaccinations our armed forces must get.
The military was ordering service members to take a shot that they could not lawfully order them to take.
Are you choosing to be non-compliant? Get on the floor! Get on the floor!
Leaders did everything legal or illegal within their power to coerce and influence their service members to get the shot.
I'll never forget, I received a phone call from a mother whose son was a Marine at 29 Palms, and she told me her son and 9 other Marines were being held in confinement in the brig until they got vaccinated.
If you don't do what they tell you to do, they will ostracize you. They will destroy your life.
Stop resisting or you will get tased!
They threatened me with Leavenworth imprisonment. They banned me from all Army Public Health Center facilities for 413 days.
I counted over 140 days where I was put into isolation.
Once it becomes normalized in the military, it often very quickly finds its way into the civilian population, as we saw with the COVID mandate.
The effects extend well beyond just those in uniform, and the impact is really on the entire nation.
8,000 well-trained men and women were fired.
I lost my income. I lost my ability to feed my family.
I mean, I'm being told you're getting dishonorably discharged.
And if you get dishonorable, you lose everything. You can't get certain jobs as a civilian. It follows you for life.
You cannot mandate an experimental medical product. You cannot mandate that on military members.
In my entire medical career prior to this, I had never seen a young person with a stroke. I had never seen someone have a massive clot without provocation.
We were in great shape. We were doing very well. But then as soon after the vax is when my health went downhill.
When people celebrate all the freedoms that the military gets to grant this country, when the military's freedoms and really the country's freedoms are actually being taken away.
Why was the vaccine mandate unlawful? How come the Secretary of War is telling us that the vaccine mandate was unlawful?
We all know that the previous administration issued unlawful orders on mandatory vaccines on an experimental vaccine, COVID-19. You know it, we know it.
You are taught that you have a duty to disobey unlawful orders.
You know, they postulated that we're going to have back pay for members that were kicked out. They're inviting these warriors back into service.
And that was huge. And I was so happy to hear that. But that does nothing for the institution itself.
What I have understood from people in the military is that it has not been made easy and that it really still needs to be done on an individual basis.
We haven't stopped in 4 years when everybody was ignoring us, and we're not going to stop for another 4, 14, or 40 years.
We are at a critical juncture, and the soul of this nation is at stake.
When we talk about orders that are unlawful, now there is a duty to disobey.
Representative Nick Cupper, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about what happened to you. You were one of the, how many was it? 8,000 members, service members who said, sorry, don't want to take the jab.
Well, it was about 8,400 who were directly kicked out over not taking it, but it was over 100,000 who didn't take it. And yeah.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know it was that many. So I mean, the way the news, but that's how the mainstream news was, right? They didn't want to let us know how many people were actually refusing it. So they're like 8,000 holdouts just won't take the vaccine. Right. But you're saying it was 100,000.
Yeah. Well, because
that's a lot.
You have to take into account the Guard and Reserve and the active duty. The hard thing for the active duty was the deadlines for us came a lot earlier than for Guard and Reserve. And so it wasn't so many active duty at the end of the day who were still able to hold out without being kicked out like I was. I held out for quite a while. And then, but you had all the Guard and Reserve members. And so when you added it all up, it was about 100,000 members.
Wow. Yeah, they didn't tell us that.
No.
They didn't want to let us know how many people were actually against it. So you were, so tell us about your military career leading up to this point.
Yeah, so I joined in 2003, straight out of high school. I spent, my first 6 years as an aircraft maintainer in Idaho. And then I did 4 years as a recruiter in Oregon, moved out to England, worked with a special operations unit there as a maintainer for 3 years. We adopted our daughter from Armenia while we were there. And because of her medical needs, she's in a wheelchair. They moved us to New Jersey. And then I was in New Jersey when COVID first kicked off. And Jersey was kind of a tyrannical state during COVID. And they stopped giving my daughter medical treatments for all kinds of other things because they were scared of COVID, which was insane because she could die of a million other things. So eventually they sent us to Luke Air Force Base in Arizona, which is where I live now. And while we were there is when the COVID mandate came into play for the military.
And why did you decide not to take the vaccine? I would think that a lot of parents in your situation, I mean, there was just so much fear mongering, right, going on in the media. And they were saying if you had anybody in your family who was vulnerable, then you should be vaccinated. Everybody should be vaccinated in order to protect the vulnerable. And I think a lot of parents especially, really felt fear, especially, and you have a special needs daughter, from my understanding. Is that right?
Yes.
So a lot of parents, I think, maybe would have made the opposite decision and kind of been they would have been tyrannical, saying, everybody around us, if you want to step foot in our house, if you want to even see us, you have to be vaccinated. But you went in a different direction. Why is that?
Well, there's two main reasons for me. One, I'm definitely more of the individualistic type of person. I believe that God gave us all free will. The Constitution enshrines that free will, that we're protected. The individual is greater than the whole. And so I think it's every person's decision to do what they think is right for themselves. For me, initially, it was, hey, I had antibodies already. I had COVID. I had tested for my antibodies. In fact, the base immunologist had told me I had more antibodies than he did, and he had taken both Moderna shots. And so I applied for religious accommodation because in my mind, I felt my God had given me antibodies and I didn't have problems with the vaccines, but the point of a vaccine is to give you antibodies. If you already have them, I don't need it. And I felt like if I took it, even though my God already gave me antibodies, I'd be doubting my God, and I'm not going to do that. And then secondarily, and this is more the legalistic perspective of it, was we didn't have any of the approved version of the shot. The Secretary of Defense at the time, Lloyd Austin, his orders specifically said we were mandated to take the approved shot with approved labeling. So I went to the base immunologist, the one guy who would know. And every single thing they had was emergency use only. And you can't legally mandate that based on Title 10 of US Code. And so that whole process eventually led me into a lawsuit myself and into this huge battle where I fought for about a year to try to, save my career, et cetera.
Why not just take the jab? I mean, what is it that you felt to where you were? I mean, how many years had you served at this point?
When the mandate came out, I had just crossed the 18-year mark.
Two more years and you're at retirement for the military. I mean, you could have potentially lost. I mean, what would you have lost?
So I did the math on this. If I would have lost my retirement, which I would have, figuring my average lifespan of maybe 40 years after retirement, I would have lost about $1.5 million just in regular payments. But the bigger thing was I would have lost all my daughter's medical. Like I mentioned, she's in a wheelchair. She has 11 different special needs. Her main one is spina bifida, and her medical is very expensive. And that's something that I knew was potential to be lost. But you asked, why not just take it? Like I said, I had a very religious conviction against it on the one hand. I really believed that if I took it, I'd be doubting my God, and I'm not willing to do that. But secondarily, on the legal aspect of it, the law says you can't mandate an unapproved vaccine or any medical product that's unapproved. And that's all they had available was the unapproved one. And even when I had my base immunologist send that to my commander's response was, well, legal says they're the same. Well, I'm not going to trust legal over the medical doctor. He says they're different. And right is right, wrong is wrong. My dad actually came, surprised me one morning when I was trying to leave for work in my driveway. He lives just down the road from me. And he, very well intentioned, for about 15 minutes, tried to convince me to take the shot. And he said, I don't want you to take it per se, but, you're the man of the house. You need to take care of your family, put food on the table. And I said, Dad, I appreciate what you're saying. And I mean, no, it comes from a good place. But at the end of the day, I know that my God has me in this fight for a reason. And if I get kicked out, then that's his plan. If I stay in, that's his plan. But I know I'm doing the right thing. And at the end of the day, right is right and wrong is wrong.
How did your wife feel about this?
She didn't love what was going on, but she saw the same thing I saw. And, she's my best friend. She's my helpmate. We're partners in everything. And so she fully supported me from the get-go. I asked her at one point, not that she ever doubted it, but I said, to me, this is the same as, what if I were to ask you to go sell your body on the street because we needed to make money, right? We needed to put food on the table. If I were to have said yes, having all these convictions against taking it, if I were to say yes, it would literally be, I'd be saying yes to a medical treatment just to get money. I'd be selling my body just to get money. That's the same as being a prostitute, and I don't really want to prostitute myself.
Oh, that's a good point. It's kind of like indecent proposal.
Yeah.
Like, let me have a night with your wife for $1 million and I'll take care of your child and her medical expenses for the rest of her life. I mean, like a proposal like that.
Yeah.
And there probably would be a lot of people who would say, well, for the benefit of my family, I guess I'll do it. But
well, that's why a huge portion said yes. I mean, you could go to so many people right now and ask them, why did you take the COVID shot? And they're not going to say they took it out of fear. They're going to say, I took it because I wanted to travel. I took it because I wanted to go into stores. I took it so I could stop wearing a mask. I took it to all these things that aren't actually medical. So many people, I anecdotally, I would argue that the majority of people maybe took it for a non-medical reason. I don't think you ever take a medical product for a non-medical reason.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think a lot of people just wanted to join society in some way. So it was just, it was like a form of, like being initiated into society. You have to take the jab.
Yeah.
And there was really no medical reason for a lot of the people to take it.
Well, it's like that Seinfeld episode where they try to make Kramer wear the red ribbon for AIDS awareness. And he says, no, I support AIDS awareness. I just don't want to wear the ribbon. And then they freak out on him and beat him up for not wearing a ribbon. Very similar.
Yeah. So that must have been pretty scary for you and your family to have that conviction and to say, I'm really not going to do it. One thing I want to ask you about from the trailer that we just watched, there was somebody, like a bunch of service members, like rush into a jail cell and they're like tackling a person. And I mean, was that person considered a danger? I mean, they're in a cell. So I was really confused by what was going on in that. I mean, obviously people are going to probably watch the movie, but I mean, I knew that there were service members who didn't, who didn't want to take the jab and that they were kicked out, or I didn't realize that there was this whole being sent to like the brig and maybe even being, I didn't understand that scene in particular. Do you know which one I'm talking about and what
I
happened with that?
do. I believe that was a gentleman, Lance Castle is his name, I believe. I don't recall his story entirely.
Yeah.
What I vaguely recall is he was someone who wasn't taking the shot, but I believe he also wasn't wearing the mask or other things like that. And this, I'm going by rote here, so I may have some of the details off. So if I'm incorrect, apologize. But I want to say that his command, because he was saying no to all these things, eventually put him in there, and it just very much escalated when it didn't need to. You know, at the end of the day, they were more in the wrong. I don't know
Yeah.
the exact details, though, whether he did something outside of the COVID realm that maybe got him there as
Uh-huh.
well. But I do know it was very strongly related to COVID.
Okay. Because I didn't realize that military members were like isolated. There was one woman in the trailer who also said that she had been sent to isolation. I mean, essentially for like 100 and something days.
I think that might have been Grana Cespedes.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize the military was that harsh. You know, I knew that people were saying, I don't want to take the vaccine. And then they ended up, maybe losing their job or being kicked out. But I didn't realize that it had escalated to the point of like, we're throwing you in jail. We're putting you in isolation for 100 some odd days. I mean, that just seems really extreme.
It was really extreme. I think she was in Korea too. And it really depended on what base you're at, who your commander was, and how bad they wanted to punish you and where their ideology was. Because so much of it became ideology, unfortunately. I know at our base, at Luke Air Force Base, one of the things they were doing, because the wing commander, he was the base commander, he was fully sold out on like everybody takes COVID shot, this, that, the other, no exemptions, etc. Where he started rounding us up, those of us who hadn't taken the shot, and 40 at a time, making us pack into a bus to go to the medical center for re-education. And if anyone then, after their re-education, decided they wanted to take the shot, everybody else had to wait for them. But we all had to line up in front of the squadron. We're the only people who had to wear masks. And so effectively, he was highlighting to the entire rest of the squadron, these are the people who don't follow orders. These are the people who don't do this. You know, when I would go to staff meetings, I'd be the only person, because I was higher ranking for an enlisted member, I'd be the only person at staff meeting with a mask on because I was the only person who had taken the shot yet. Although all the time I'd be the only person at work because everybody else who had COVID who had taken the shot, and I'm the only one sitting at work, you know, without COVID, even though I haven't taken the shot.
So you didn't actually lose your military career. You actually were able to keep it. How is that possible? So many people were booted.
So with my situation, what happened was I got a separation package, which was their intent to kick me out, to separate me. And I got it 3 weeks before my 19-year mark. The very next day, there was a court injunction that covered a class status of anyone in the Air Force who had applied for religious accommodation and been denied. It was not a lawsuit I was technically part of, but because I fell into the class, it worked out. And so literally, I think it was about 24 hours after I got my separation package, this court injunction went into play, which stopped them from kicking me out. And eventually the mandate got repealed. And so I got to retire about a year later.
Wow. So you kind of, would you say you lucked out?
I wouldn't say luck. I would say God took care of me like I thought he would.
Okay. Well, there you go. What happened now? What's going on now with the others? I know that this current administration is trying to undo it. I think because they're wanting people to go to war with Iran. Kind of seems like they're like, hey, we need you back now so that we can throw you to the wolves, you know, on the other side of the world. I mean, what is happening at this point? What happened to many of the service members who were booted? Did they lose their retirements? Were they able to get them back? I mean, what is the status of them? Do you know?
It's been slow rolled, unfortunately. It's not where it should be. I would say it's unrelated to Iran. That's its own issue. But they started bringing back in people, and they tried to make it easier. We actually put together a listening session where a bunch of us who were really instrumental in this in the first place went out. We had the chance to actually sit down for a couple hours with at the Pentagon with Secretary Hegseth and his Undersecretary of Manpower, Secretary Tata. And they listened to us. In fact, Stu Scheller, who was unrelated to COVID, but he was part of this, he's really been kind of helpful in trying to hear us out and understand all the nuance to this, because it's not so simple as saying, hey, let's just bring back who wants to be brought back. There's people, because it's been years, who their entire life have changed. Maybe they have families now, maybe they didn't have families before. They've moved across the country, they've started new jobs. You can't just drop everything and come right back in. And so some of the issues that we saw from our perspective, having been people who dealt with this, is that they only offered back pay if you would come back in, but maybe you can't come back in. But it doesn't mean that the military still didn't do you wrong. The military did tens of thousands of people wrong.
Right.
And so it's still not where we think it should be. We really think what should happen is there should be, honestly, probably a task force of people like us who went through it and know the nuance of it, to case by case say, hey, look, this is what you're actually owed, and do you want to come back or do you not want to come back? And whether you want to come back or not, you should get that back pay. I think the fact that they would say you have to come back to get your back pay is not responsible. I will say they're doing much better than the last administration. Very helpful.
Okay.
Thankful for that. They keep extending the deadlines because I think they are trying to get it right. But unfortunately, like everything else, and like the job I do now, politics plays a role, and it's very difficult to get past politics.
Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, for free at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.